Now we're on to video 14, handouts and notes on inflation indices and Phillips curve. पिछली क्लास में हमने डिस्कस कर लिया था कि वेरियस काइंड्स ऑफ इन्फ्लेशंस और उसके अलावा हमने 7 क्वेश्चंस भी किए थे ऑन इन्फ्लेशन। अब हम बात करेंगे उन इंडिसेस की जो इन्फ्लेशन को somehow मेजर करते हैं। So first one is consumer price index, and next we're going to discuss about wholesale price index, and then we're going to discuss Phillips curve and where Phillips curve actually failed. ये तीन aspects हैं। उसके बाद 7 questions. Let's quickly go with the same. हमने बहुत important topics जब भी कवर कर रहे होते हैं, हमने क्लबिंग टॉपिक्स की इस तरह से की है जिससे सारे एक ना एक कॉन्सेप्ट्स हम एक ही बारे में कवर कर लें। इसलिए इंडिसेस ऑफ फिल्म्स कर्व को हमने थोड़ा सा अलग रखा फ्रॉम द अदर एस्पेक्ट्स ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन। ओके, सो लेट्स स्टैगफ्लेशन की बात भी जरूर होगी क्योंकि फिलिप्स कर्व का के अगेंस्ट जाता है स्टैगफ्लेशन। जो फिलिप्स कर्व बताता है आपको उसके अगेंस्ट जाता है स्टैगफ्लेशन। से स्टैगफ्लेशन की बात जरूर होगी आज। लेट्स स्टार्ट विद CPI, Consumer Price Index, CPI. The Consumer Price Index measures changes in the prices of a basket of consumer goods and services purchased by households. CPI क्या measure कर रहा है? Change in the price of a basket of consumer goods and services. किसकी बास्केट की बात हो रही है यहाँ पे? कंज्यूमर गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज की बास्केट की बात हो रही है और उसकी प्राइस की चेंज के बारे में बात हो रही है जो हम हाउस होल्ड्स खरीदते हैं, जो हम लोग खरीदते हैं। इट्स अ की इंडिकेटर ऑफ रिटेल इन्फ्लेशन। रिटेल सेक्टर में जो हम मार्केट में जाके दुकान से जो सामान खरीदते हैं वो रिटेल कहलाता है। उसको उसमें महंगाई को बढ़ाने में ये एक बहुत बड़ा इंडिकेटर है, बहुत बड़ा की इंडिकेटर है एंड डायरेक्टली रिफ्लेक्ट्स द कॉस्ट ऑफ लिविंग फॉर एवरेज कंज्यूमर। जैसे ही आपका रिटेल इन्फ्लेशन ऊपर जाएगा आपका कॉस्ट ऑफ लिविंग हाई हो जाएगा। Who releases it? National Statistical Office of the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, MOSPI. NSO stands for National Statistical Office and MOSPI, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Statistics का मतलब क्या होता है थोड़ा सा समझ लेते हैं, अच्छा रहेगा, हमारे लिए बहुत ज़रूरी है। स्टैटिस्टिक्स का मतलब होता है डेटा को एनालाइज करना और इंटरप्रेट करना। That is called as statistics. What's in the basket? It includes both goods and services. Goods किस तरह की goods? Food, clothing, fuel, housing, ये सारी goods. Services किस तरह की services? Education, medical care, transportation, इस तरह की सर्विसेज हमारी बास्केट में इंक्लूड हो। ये सारी चीज़ें हाउस होल्ड्स के लिए इम्पॉर्टेंट है। बेस ईयर क्या रहेगा? 2012 रहेगा और सिग्निफिकेंट क्या है? सिंस 2014 RBI has adopted CPI, that means Consumer Price Index combined as the key measure for its inflation targeting policy। मतलब कि 2012 हमारा बेस पीरियड है, बेस ईयर है फॉर CPI combined, और CPI combined since 2014 by Reserve Bank of India has been the key measure the CPI as a key measure for its inflation targeting policy। तो सीपीआई चेक करेंगे, सीपीआई कितना बढ़ा या घटा, उसके बेसिस पे ही वो इन्फ्लेशन टारगेटिंग पॉलिसी बनाएंगे। क्लियर हो गया? अब आते हैं होलसेल प्राइस इंडेक्स पे। होलसेल प्राइस इंडेक्स में measures changes in the average price of goods at the wholesale level. That is, before they reach the retail consumer. It tracks prices at the first point of bulk sale. समझते हैं? होलसेल का मतलब ही बल्क में होता है ना, जो सब्जी मंडी या फिर आपकी अनाज मंडी या फिर आपकी जहाँ पे फूलों की गाजीपुर मंडी, ये सब जगहों पे होलसेल में सामान बिकता है। होलसेल में फूल बिक रहे हैं, होलसेल में अनाज बिक रहा है, होलसेल में सब्जियां बिक रही हैं। ठीक है, दैट्स अ होलसेल। नाउ होलसेल प्राइस इंडेक्स, इंडेक्स का मतलब ही प्राइस इंडेक्स में हम क्या कुछ ना कुछ मेजर करते हैं। ठीक है ना? सो व्हाट आर वी मेजरिंग ओवर हियर? वी मेजर changes in the average price of goods at the wholesale level. That is before they reach the retail consumer. रिटेल के पास पहुंचने से पहले होलसेल लेवल पे हम चेक कर रहे हैं। It tracks prices at the first point of bulk sale. Who releases it? Office of Economic Advisor in the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. So, what's in the basket? It includes only goods, divided into three main categories: primary articles, fuel and power, and manufactured products. So, basket में क्या क्या होता है? Wholesale price index की basket में क्या क्या होता है? It includes only goods, divided into three main categories: primary articles, fuel and power, and manufactured products. Now comes the base year. Current base year is 2011-12. Base year की बात हमने यहाँ पे भी की है. Base year is 2012, right? हमने पहले भी बात कर रखी है कि बेस ईयर भी चेंज होने वाला है. सो February next year 2026 में your base is going to change, which is going to be 2022 to 2023. So that we already know. Significance: it reflects inflation from a producer's perspective. It does not include services, which is a major limitation. Right. होलसेल प्राइस इंडेक्स में प्रोड्यूसर का पर्सपेक्टिव है inflation. It does not include services, which is a major limitation. Yes. Inflation type हम अगर distinguish करें between CPI and WPI, let's have a look. So inflation type, CPI, retail consumer inflation, we have understood all these things. So now weightage of CPI, food has a high weightage, over 45% CPIC. Manufactured products have the highest weightage in WPI. So in wholesale price index, manufactured products have the highest weightage, whereas food has the highest weightage in consumer price index. So 45% is the weightage of food in CPI, consumer price index, and 64% is the weightage of manufactured products in WPI. Coverage is CPI goods and services, WPI only goods. Data point, so inflation type is retail consumer inflation and WPI is wholesale inflation. Done. Data point, for CPI is final retail prices paid by consumers, and WPI is price at the first point of bulk sale. Now, monetary policy, For CPI used by RBI for inflation targeting, correct? We've discussed that. WPI may not used by RBI for inflation targeting provides a supplementary view. Apart from CPI, आपको एक view मिल जाता है, viewpoint मिल जाता है from WPI. Now let's understand Phillip's curve. Phillip's curve is an economic model that illustrates the inverse relationship between unemployment and the rate of inflation. For example, if unemployment is increasing, inflation is falling down. If inflation is increasing, unemployment is falling down. मतलब कि एक बढ़ेगा दूसरा घटेगा दूसरा घटेगा तो एक बढ़ेगा. ये inverse relationship का मतलब भी यही होता है, right? Core idea is that as unemployment falls, inflation rises and vice versa. That's what we've discussed. Short-run Phillips curve. This is a downward sloping curve. When the economy is growing and unemployment is low, businesses have to compete for workers by offering higher wages. This increases production costs, which are then passed on to consumers as higher prices. So there will be inflation. So unemployment low है और inflation ऊपर जा रहा है. Long run Phillips curve. In long run, this relationship breaks down. Long run Phillips curve is a vertical line at the natural rate of unemployment or non-accelerating inflation rate of unemployment. NAIRU, non-accelerating inflation rate of unemployment. This means either natural rate of unemployment or it's also known as non-accelerating inflation rate of unemployment. This means that in the long run, the economy will return to its natural rate of unemployment regardless of the inflation rate. Any attempt by policymakers to reduce unemployment below this natural rate will only lead to high inflation without a long-term decrease in unemployment. Next is stagflation. The Phillips curve does not explain stagflation. What is stagflation? Inflation and unemployment both will rise. Inflation भाग रहा ऊपर और unemployment भाग रहा ऊपर at the same time. This was a major challenge to the theory in the 1970s. Now let's look at UPSC Civil Services prelims questions. First one is, with reference to the Indian economy, consider the following statements. Weightage of food in consumer price index is higher than that in wholesale price index. Weightage of food in consumer price index is higher. Correct. Than that in the wholesale price index. Correct. Absolutely correct. WPI does not capture changes in the price of services which CPI does. Yes, absolutely. ये हमने अभी डिस्कस किया था. It was written with it was written in bold. Correct. So 1 and 2 both are correct. ठीक है. RBI has not offered WPI. No. CPI हमने भी डिस्कस किया था as its key measure of inflation decide on changing the key policy rates. So 1 and 2 are correct. Absolutely. Which of the statements is given above is are correct? So 1 and 2 only, 2 only, 3 only. Okay, D is 1 and 2 and 3. No. Answer is A. 1 and 2 are correct. RBI uses CPI, not WPI for inflation targeting. Perfect. Economic growth is usually coupled with inflation. Answer is B. A moderate level of inflation is generally seen as a sign of growing economy, where demand is healthy and businesses are expanding. This we have seen in the previous session. Next is rapid increase in the rate of inflation, sometimes attributed to the base effect. What is base effect? Now, impact of drastic deficiency in supply due to failure of crops. Impact of the surge in demand and rapid economic growth. No, it's impact of price levels of previous year on the calculation of the inflation rate. Absolutely correct. We have done the base effect in the previous session. If you remember, we have done this. In some questions, we have done the base effect. Okay, impact of price levels on the previous year, the calculation. The C is the right answer. C. Correct. So Base rate refers to the impact of the previous year's inflation rate on the current year's calculation. A low base in the previous year can make a small price rise in the current year look like a high rate of inflation. Absolutely correct. With reference to the Indian economy, consider the following statements. If inflation is too high, RBI is likely to buy government securities. If inflation is too high, if inflation is too high, RBI is likely to buy government securities. अगर इन्फ्लेशन बहुत ज़्यादा है तो आरबीआई गवर्नमेंट सिक्योरिटीज को क्यों बाय करेगी? एक मिनट आगे देखते हैं. If the rupee is rapidly depreciating, sell dollars in the market. Yes, they will do that. इससे हमारी रुपी का डेप्रिसिएशन रुकेगा. They are likely to sell dollars in the market. This is always done. Yes. 2 तो करेंगे. 1 मतलब नहीं बन रहा ना. एक मिनट देखते हैं. 1 incorrect लग रहा है मेरे को. Okay, if interest rates in the USA or European Union were to fall, that is likely to induce RBA to buy dollars. If interest rates in the USA or European Union were to fall, RBA to buy dollars. Okay. RBA to buy dollars. Interest rates उनके वो हो रहे हैं, इससे हम क्यों ज़्यादा होंगे लेंगे? ओके, ले सकते हैं हम, 3 कर सकते हैं. RBA to buy dollars. हाँ, इंटरेस्ट रेट्स लो हैं, हम बाय तो कर सकते हैं. करेक्ट. तो okay, let's understand. Are correct. 1 and 2 only. 2 and 3 only. 1 and 3 only. 1, 2 and 3. So 1 गड़बड़ है, जहाँ पे 1 आ रहा है वो तो जाएगा ही. 2 and 3 होना चाहिए. Statement 1 is incorrect. To combat high inflation, RBI would sell government securities, right? Inflation ऊपर जा रहा है तो government securities sell करेंगे, buy थोड़ा करेंगे. Correct. Open market operations would sell government securities, open market operations, to absorb money from the system. Statements 2 and 3 are correct. Which one of the following is likely to be the most inflationary in effect? Repayment of public debt, borrowing from the public to finance a budget deficit, borrowing from banks to finance a budget deficit, creation of new money to finance a budget deficit, or the of D all the time. ये हमने पहले भी क्वेश्चन किया है. जब भी न्यू मनी क्रिएट करते हैं ना टू फाइनेंस बजट डेफिसिट, वो बहुत इन्फ्लेशनरी होता है. Creating new money, also known as printing money or deficit financing, to cover government spending, directly increases the money supply, leading to significant demand for inflation. This is done sometimes by the countries when the governments know that they are going to fail miserably in the elections, the coming elections. So they do this and they go. But that is very bad for the economy. So let's not talk politics. Sorry. So which of the following brings out that this happened in few countries? So that's the only reason. Okay. So which of the following brings out the consumer price index number for industrial workers? Which of the following brings out the CPI number for industrial workers? CPI index number for industrial workers. The following brings out the RBI. CPI RBI लेके आएगा, वो लेके आएगा यार. एक मिनट. अच्छा, नहीं, हमने RBI की बात कुछ और चीज़ के लिए की थी. Economic Labor Bureau, National Statistical Office. So CPI for industrial workers is compiled by Labor Bureau. हमने ये पूछा है, brings out the नंबर फॉर इंडस्ट्रियल वर्कर्स, क्या डेटा है उनका, तो वो लेबर ब्यूरो के पास जाएगा. सो आंसर इज लेबर ब्यूरो, which falls under the Ministry of Labor and Employment. Okay. Next one. In the context of the Phillips curve, which of the following is correct? It shows the direct relationship between inflation and employment. Shows the direct relationship between inflation and economic growth. No. पहला ठीक लग रहा है. Shows the inverse relationship between, नहीं, direct relationship नहीं है, inverse relationship actually है. C is the right answer. It shows an inverse relationship between inflation and economic growth. No. The core concept of Phillips curve is the inverse relationship between inflation and employment in the short term. Correct. Absolutely correct. So that's it for today.